Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, how you doing? It's been a while, but you know what? I am your host, Daniel Stafford, and you are listening to the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. Now, tonight I just want to talk for a few minutes about defeating ISIS by killing them with kindness. Yeah, you heard a little bit of sarcasm in that, so if you're a fan of one of my favorite shows, Big Bang Theory, Bazinga. Look, there are many ways to listen, so set this channel as a favorite, or wherever you're at, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind. In the case you aren't already following on social media, you can find me over on the Twitters, at Stafford Voice, or on Facebook. All you gotta do is just search for the Stafford Voice. Also, if you're into that thing, we're over on the Instagrams. We're out on Anchor. More on that later. We're trying to be where you are. So if you haven't found us, all you have to do is just search for the Stafford Voice. Hopefully you'll find us. We're on the YouTubes. We're on the Instagrams. We're on the Anchors, Twitters, Facebooks. You name it, we're probably there. So apparently the way to defeating ISIS is to kill them with kindness. In order to stop Christians from being slaughtered in the Mideast, Africa, and Europe by radical Islamists, is to just kill them with kindness? Well, I can't even figure out an interesting way to make that sound. I mean, what? Alright, now, look, before we get started on a little rant here, let's hear a word about our sponsors. Some crowdfunding sites are too liberal and keep more for themselves. Even worse, if they don't like you or someone gets offended, they'll cancel your campaign. But not at RWNJ Funding. They hold true to conservative and libertarian values. Plus, they won't cave to the PC crowd. More importantly, they believe in you. RWNJFunding.com. The right cause, the right values, done right. RWNJFunding.com.
Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Nothing will protect you quite like your sidearm, so why not give it the protection it deserves? Something as strong as the Second Amendment and stands the test of time, and better yet, made in the USA. A Rebel Road Tactical Custom Kydex holster is that and more. Call now and place your order with Rebel Road Tactical at 682-217-4579. Again, 682-217-4579, or online at rebelroadtactical.com. Okay, so over the Easter weekend, during his address, President Obama said, quote, "We have to wield another weapon alongside our airstrikes, our military, our counterterrorism work, and our diplomacy. And that's the power of our example, our openness to refugees fleeing ISIL's violence. Our determination to win the battle against ISIL's hateful and violent propaganda, a distorted view of Islam that aims to radicalize young Muslims to their cause." Okay. Look, even Pope Francis got in on the action, saying, quote, "This day invites us not to forget those men and women seeking a better future, an ever more numerous throng of migrants and refugees, including many children, fleeing war, hunger, poverty, and social justice." Okay, look, I get it. I don't want to see children being radicalized by some freak ideology. If you're a Muslim or an Islamic listener, please don't take that to heart. They are radical, and they represent only a very small percentage of what is of who Islam and Muslims are. War, hunger, poverty, social injustice. Okay, yeah. People go hungry in the United States, and it's one of the wealthiest nations. People live in poverty in the United States. Not as low or as bad as many other countries, but there's poverty. We've got veterans living on the streets. Homeless veterans who put their life on the line, willing to die to protect a lot of these people. Eric Prince, the managing director of the Frontier Resource Group and former Navy SEAL, summed it up pretty good in an interview over the weekend when he said, quote, "It is direct, selective Christian slaughter." And he was referring to the attacks from groups like Al-Shabaab's raid on the Nigerian university in Garissa. I think there was like 140 some people that were killed. He said, instead of putting out the fires where people live, so people can live in their homelands, we let these fires burn. Call it the powers that be, the United States, the Europeans, all the people with the big nation-state militaries. Don't ever put the fire out. And that's what's causing all these refugee crises and causing Christians living in those areas to be slaughtered. He said, radical Islam is not out to win an intellectual debate or a debate of faith. It is, you believe what I believe, or I'm going to cut your head off. It's that absolute. He said, these psychopaths take explosives into an airport, and they think they're serving their God and their cause by blowing up people for their alleged crime of riding the subway or getting on a commercial airplane. That's the kind of insanity we're dealing with, and there's really no other way when dealing with insanity than to put a rabid dog down. Yes. Right on. Look, we can't just hug this out. You've got to be honest with yourselves. Can we be friends? Can we all just get along? No, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. We can't just hug this out. We can't just give everybody a job. Which, in 2015, when somebody brought that up, that was one of the probably top 10 moronic things somebody ever said in 2015. And that was referring to all of these people over there, that ISIS is ticked off because of global warming and they can't grow anything and they don't have jobs. That's why they're going out and cutting people's heads off. That's why they're going around hunting Christians and hunting those who don't believe what they believe and killing them and slaughtering them. It doesn't matter, old or young. They are not afraid to kill children. They're not afraid to kill men and women or old people. They're not afraid. They don't care. If you don't believe their radical ideology, they firmly believe it's okay to kill you. So what do people do to combat this? What do you do? Because you can't just hug this out. I don't care what President Obama says. When he says that in order to defeat ISIS, we need to be tolerant. And we need to be open to accepting more refugees. I'm sorry to the Pope, but I don't think that weapons of love are going to fix anything. Earlier today, I went... excuse me. Earlier today, I went to the Anchor community, and if you don't know what Anchor is, I'm sorry. Anchor is incredible. It's like Twitter with a voice. Right now, it's only out for the Apple community. I'm sorry. I think it works on a desktop. If you reply, if you see somebody's wave, which is somebody's sound file that they've wave that they created, if it goes over to, if they have their account linked to Twitter, I think you're able to go and check it out and reply. I don't know how it works on a desktop. I know that the people behind Anchor are working to get it, to get all of the kinks out, to get it over into the Android community. But Anchor is awesome. I mean, there are some great conversations over there. A conversation is a compilation of waves. Each time you record something on Anchor, it's called a wave, and you can respond to it kind of like you would on Twitter, but because you hear a voice on the other side, there's none of that stupid and ridiculous crap that you see on Twitter. Because subconsciously you hear a voice and you know that there's a real person on the other side. And it creates some really good dialogue. Okay, so again, earlier I went out to the Anchor community and I kind of asked this. I basically asked the question, are weapons of love, tolerance, and accepting more refugees the way to defeating radical Islamists? And I've pulled just a couple of responses that I wanted to share with you. Because this is the kind of dialogue that you get. And there are some great conversations out there. I really want to invite you guys over to Anchor. Look me up. Obviously, all you got to do is search for the Stafford Voice, or if you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to find me that way. But let me play for you just two of the responses to that question that I had asked. Check this out.
You know, I always like to be as fair as possible when it comes to anything political, but it's really, really hard for me to not criticize, the way that we've handled terror to this point. I understand that the situation, especially with ISIS, isn't the easiest thing to do, and people are like, well, you can't kill an ideology. However, at the same time, the president should not continue to say that this is not an existential threat. They are not a threat. They are the JV team. Well, no, they're not the JV team if they're capable of these crazy acts. And, it's proven, especially in Germany, in Cologne, Germany, all these places, that it's not the best idea. There's even other countries sending refugees back to Syria. So it's a very, very rough situation, but I think we should be absolutely tougher on terror, and I hope something happens soon.
Radical Islamic groups like ISIS feed off fear, anger, frustration, and use those elements to radicalize people. And the only way to really defeat them in the long run is to remove their argument, the basis of their argument. And you can only do that by being a loving nation, a nation of tolerance, a nation of acceptance, who stands up, a nation that stands up for the rights of Muslims all over the world. Because 99% of all Muslims are good people, and we need to stand up for them and show them that we accept and tolerate them and want them to be part of our society and community. And by doing that, we remove any and all reason for people to be radicalized.
Okay, see what I mean? Great conversation starting right here. These were just two responses. Two different ways to take that same question that I had asked. And to touch on just a couple of things. The first person that responded, he brought up the idea about how the president has viewed ISIS and these radical Islamists as the JV squad. And I have a serious question. If these guys are the JV squad, what is the varsity squad? What do they do? Seriously, but to move it over to the second guy, whether we should be willing to provide protection to those Muslims out there who are not radicalized. Look, I don't have a problem with that. We do. That really is what America is. We genuinely want to help people. Whether we agree with them or not. Whether we accept them and their religion or not. We genuinely hope for the best in everyone. And we should be out there providing some level of protection. So those who are radicalized can't go out and recruit anymore. I'm interested to see how or if the conversation goes any further than that. But you know, there are some serious questions that we as a nation need to start honestly answering and figuring out a way to defeat ISIS. Those who are radicalized we have to do something about them. As Eric, to go back to what Eric Prince said, when dealing with insanity, there's no other way to do it than to put a rabid dog down. Now, for now, the rant is done. It's over. And you know what? God willing, the Stafford Voice will be back next time. You can follow me on Twitter at Stafford Voice. Look me up on Facebook. It's really easy. Wherever you're at, all you got to do is just search for the Stafford Voice. Whether it's on Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I'm there. Email any of your questions or comments to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Oh, and by the way, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't done so, go over to my YouTube channel. It's really easy. All you got to do is just, I know, it's that easy. Search for the Stafford Voice. Subscribe to the page. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're at. Because YouTube gets exclusive content. You're going to get... I've got a couple of videos up, and I hope to do some more in the future. Please reply back to me. Let me know what you think of them. But it's just raw. I want to talk to you, and I want to get some dialogue going on some of these issues. So if you've got any questions, comments, or anything you want to hear us bring up here on the show, on the podcast, you can do so by sending them to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. I can't thank you enough for your time, but until next week, thanks and God bless. Voice.